I have the absolute honor to introduce Dr. Mattia Federico Leone. He is an architect with a PhD in building technology and environmental design. He's an associate professor at the Department of Architecture and senior researcher at the Plinius Study Center, University of Naples, Federico, too. His research focuses on multi-scale assessment tools and design strategies for disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and carbon neutrality. He coordinates the MSc, UCCRN EDU, Climate Resilient Urban Design, and also leads a research unit on environmental responsive planning. He is a co-coordinator. He is the co-director of the Urban Climate Change Research Network European Hub, and the co-coordinator of the UCCRN ARC 3.3. Thank you very much, Dr. Leone, for...
So it's really a pleasure for me, and honestly, it will be great for me to be in person with you, especially because although, of course, the work that I do, mostly at university, and we are mostly working, and I will also present a case related to my city where we work with since many years. We have, and I have this role, especially between the Urban Climate Change Research Network, which is a global network, and that actually, as in Nigeria, our regional hub for Africa in Kano. So I don't know if you know Professor Aliou Barau from Bayero University. He's the director of our African hub as a renowned climate scientist. And the nature of this network, which is a privilege of directing the European hub, co-directing the European hub based in Naples and Paris, is what you see actually in this slide. You can see the sides, I would say, but this is a network of people that come from many areas, from research to city practitioner, and of course local authorities, and it's a very, very active network in terms of relations. So I'm really happy to be there because I know that if I seem to be a bit far, but what we actually emphasize is the importance of exchanging knowledge and resources across geographies around common issues. Of course, climate change and alongside with maybe even more critical from my perspective, environmental pressure is a challenge that of course connects us all globally and requires exchanges that also can activate relevant synergies in local context. What we're showing here is a little bit the DNA of our work with the UCERN, which has been recently published. This ARC 3.3 is actually the third assessment report on climate change. This is one of the major efforts that we try to do also in combination with the IPCC reporting cycle, trying also to feed the assessment reports and also the spatial reports through our specific lens. So in this, I coordinated a global working group on planning, urban design, and architecture for climate action. You can see this is this effort that we made with respect to accomplished challenge. It was actually said before how critical, regardless of the pace of climate change pressure, is how our transformation perspective and approach transformation at city level and in general our impact on territories actually affects what are the impacts and also associated vulnerabilities that are especially emphasized towards both communities and ecosystem that are already vulnerable and endangered. So in this sense, I come from a part of Europe that is of course a bit different from the rest of Europe. As you can imagine, around Mediterranean Europe, a lot of criticalities that are shared between of course the north and the south borders of a unique identity. And we also feel much more near in some cases to African countries that are near to the Mediterranean, for example, to North other Europe. So this issue of identities and geographies makes the challenge, the opportunity of a cross-border collaboration very meaningful, and also opens the mind towards the way we actually approach that, because of course we are privileged to be able to use European funding devoted to transition and transformation. But on the other hand, that's what actually needs to be changed, because we are sharing challenges that sometimes are overlooked in terms of a synergy that could be activated between countries and also people actually that work in the same arena. This is another slide that it's a little bit our work when we want to actually to bring science into practice. So this approach that we call Urban Design Climate Workshop with a set of tools and methodologies that we kind of tested over the years in a number of cities around the world. You can see there is on our website a map of this. I flagged it in this slide, the one that we call capacity building, meaning those that help, that was an opportunity for us to work directly with cities. And you can see a few in Africa. We worked with Durban or in Rio de Janeiro, New York, and of course in Europe, where our work is also supported by several projects. This approach, as I said, is composed by a series of tools that are actually tailored from time to time to the unique specificities of the challenge at hand. So in this example, of course, the scope of the work that we did in Napoli, it was different from the one in Rio de Janeiro or Durban. And because every city has its own, not only local challenges related to climate change, but also its own agenda and opportunities for transformation. So these tools and these methods are actually adapted, centered around what's the role of cities and how actually several urban climate factors shape response to climate risk, but especially shape the greenhouse gas emission and the well-being of people and nature on this planet. So actually, we really endorsed the notion of climate resilient development as also very well pushed by AR6 and now in the upcoming special report on cities, hopefully also brought at the level of urban climate resilient development, especially with this evoked transformative system change in which the well-being from people and nature must go alongside with integrated effort towards mitigation and adaptation. This approach combines a set of tools that work under multiple scale. You can recognize here GIS tools that are of course great for a territorial to citywide projects and plans. And then when you go into the neighborhood or building scale, the detail is increased in terms of quality 3D and information. So we have several outputs that this is the case of Durban that we worked on, that are associated to these tools that of course help to work along mitigation adaptation in a coordinated way. But then how this fits in priorities of community that sometimes diverge with respect to the specific climate goals, although I would say there are more synergy than trade-offs in this sense. We have a series of tools that help to prioritize community and environmental priorities, which are the key element to anchor the value proposition for climate resilient urban transformation and checking impact the effect of action as crafted through co-design process with communities back into the climate effect of those. So I just really want briefly to present in a couple of minutes what we did in the city of Napoli in this connection with the SECAP. SECAP, which is an initiative, as you know, of the Global Covenant of Mayors, so it's something that's happening all over the world, in which we did a work in systematizing the action that the city was doing at multiple levels at city projects. We mapped all this project and their effects in terms of CO2 emission and adaptation, connected to our set of tools. And then based on this and the effect of these projects on the target for climate neutrality and adaptation, we collaboratively worked with local institutions and communities to craft a vision for 2050 and connect this vision to not only 2030, but also to more transformative vision around architecture and planning and design topics that you see maybe on the right-hand side that can become, sketches. These are actually coming from our co-design exercise, and we put it at the forefront as a strategic vision. So new ways of calling maybe the same things, public space that becomes a climate shelter, a food hub, which becomes a different way to introduce circularity in the critical urban system that convey carbon emission. And so we have an ability to map current state, actions, and effects. And we actually deliver this as a source of information to our city in the form of a database of data that can be freely accessed and covering all the city with a detail of 100 meters on the territory, with a set of information that can, of course, be used and inform the planning. But alongside with that, and in closing, because it's, of course, greatly supported by the project that you see and the initiatives that you see, it's only the first step of a larger capacity building in which, technical capacity go hand in hand with the capacity of envisioning and building strong narrative, in which is not only a siloed approach to mitigation or adaptation or development, but actually making a case for a transformative system change approach in which the systemic nature of targeted action and the multiple values that through targeted investment can be delivered, aligning priorities from public, private, and communities, can actually deliver the tangible benefits that we all looking for. And that after, we can say that in 2013, we might have failed what we call sustainable development goals. We need to look 2015, 2018 with a different agenda for the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Leon, for that very insightful, and also just showing us the practical side of it and the more concrete examples. And so you've one of the questions I would like to follow up with you on your presentation is that how can cities in Africa, especially in Global South, particularly adapt these multi-scale climate design tools to their own context? We've talked about, most of the speakers today have talked about how it's important to localize some of this, especially given that in Global South, in most Global South countries, there is limits in terms of data, in terms of funding, and in terms of technical capacity.
Yeah, well, which is something that we always address, and it's why this sort of a global scale of the approach help Padar to confront with these cases, and of course it become then the support in terms of intel and data change, because of course in the case of the ability to build digital twin and work with more complex tool, it's something that may come from the level of preparedness and the needs and goal of a specific city. But what we are seeing, of course, now is the huge availability of data, and several proxies do exist that help to match the connection between climate change projection, let's say the global scale, and urban information. So when we did, for example, this exercise in the informal settlement in the Durban area in South Africa, of course, we had to work with a completely different set of information that was actually leveraged to the fact that global network and local network actually can expand the range of resources and the collaboration that exists. And I'm referring in the case of Africa to the several compacts that exist in several regions that connects multiple countries, and also the ability to convey cooperation fund and climate finance directly to region. This is a thing that go in hand. But the thing is that while, of course, this evidence-based information is useful to prove that projects are bankable, and that's the key to unlock funding. On the other hand, what we actually need to advance is to build solid narratives and strategic partnership in which the vision is built together and the goals are declared. And actually, even in the absence of robust, maybe in detailed data sets, there is enough information, thanks to Earth observation, thanks to this global data set that are daily data, and I will be happy to afterwards even give more detail, but follow the publication that we did, where we have a series of database that are accessible all over the world, and that's sort of a proxies of things that we actually use. And for the other part, we really need to come together. We have to really to break the barriers and identify the common challenge they make meaningful. For example, the collaboration between African countries and Mediterranean countries and Latin American countries around same challenges, where these issues are actually recurring. And there I see a lot of potential. You know, we all know how Africa is the real future of our world, and it's what we need to all come together and try to overcome all the problems that Western, West have produced around this country. Now, where the East is rising with a different but similar approach, we cannot really afford that for the future of our world. So capacity needs to be locally, and all the effort needs to be made to at least be at the same level of this velocity that profit-oriented business approach is doing. So we must come together to at least be able to deliver meaningful and community and environmental relevant futures, and not leave everything to the markets, because we saw already what does it mean.
Thank you so much. You might have touched on this, but we have a question from the audience on co-design. When you talked about bringing climate science into practice through tools that are adapted to specific realities of each cities, and you showed us different examples of the different hubs in various cities. So how do you ensure that co-design is not just consultation? Who are asked for input after decision. People usually ask for input after the decisions have already been made. But how do we ensure that it is a genuine process when communities do help shape the priorities, do help shape the tools and solutions from the beginning?
That's one of our obsession, I have to say, where we have this participatory approach that is sort of checklist, only discussion based, and say, "Oh, I've done it," and then you actually didn't do anything. This is the nature of what we call this facilitation toolkit. We had a series of pretty simple tools, like they range from collaborative mapping, sticky notes, to playful approaches. We developed with Lego bricks that delivers 3D, very engaging, even for non-expert ways of actually co-designing, like meaning going together alongside the preparatory information about climate change and other data that we can harvest for the case. But then it's exactly what we have to do is we have to work and generate projects with known experts. So it means that planners might have and designers might have the role of then collecting back this input and making it more formally embedded into what we can call a master plan or a project. But in terms of priority, visioning, narratives, and also actual physical transformative solution, they must be actually co-designed. And how we disentangle, but it's not only of a non-expert. When we were in Durban, again, I can take this example, it was really hard for us to, when we did a local capacity workshop with city leaders and technical department, they didn't, even they were architects, but they didn't wanted to draw. So we kind of speak with them, and while we were speaking, we were drawing. And this created a very strong, impactful set of visual tools that then we can assess all together, as you know, the shared vision that then we can further bring back and a series of iteration. So another final thing is that it cannot be a one-off consultation. It's a process. It's a process of iteration that needs to keep along the whole process community and stakeholder on board, even with their different value proposition and goals. But we cannot separate, because that's what imbalance the power level, and we know where the power sits, and we know how, if we don't do anything to rebalance it on, and we are talking about communities, but if you think about nature, they cannot even speak. So how we then express the right of non-humans, and this is a challenge that needs to be onboarded, and there are contexts in which the identity and the local knowledge and the touch knowledge or the indigenous knowledge is actually bringing the voice of nature. And that's the most powerful learning that we can activate when in this co-design process, we are actually learning more than teaching. We are getting a lot, and then the duty of decision makers and planners is then to give back in form of actual transformation.
Thank you very much. Very excellent presentation and very profound. Just to do a wrap up, you've reminded us that building climate resilient cities requires more than just an ambition. It requires the tools. It requires system thinking, design thinking, local knowledge, and collaboration across across different disciplines. And you've emphasized on connecting climate science with architecture, if I'm correct, and urban planning and institutions and communities. And you also highlighted the importance of multi-scale approaches from buildings and neighborhoods to wide urban system. And this is important for cities in Africa, especially, and the global south. So where data, as mentioned earlier, technical capacity and funding are often limited, but where local knowledge, co-design, and practical adaptation can make climate action more realistic and more inclusive. So thank you once again, Dr. Leon, for bringing such an important perspective, such an important design and climate science perspective to this symposium. We appreciate your time, we appreciate your expertise and your contributions to the World Environment Day Symposium, proudly hosted by the Green Institute. Thank you, and we look forward to future collaborations as well.
Please do connect with our African Hub in Kano. That will be great way of collaborating. Thanks.
Hey, thank you so much.